What is going on, guys? So last week, I did a video on Monday with my 10 key takeaways from the first week of the NHL season, and I thought it would be kind of a cool idea to make this a reoccurring video every Monday, wrapping up the previous week. What are my key takeaways? I only got 6 takeaways this time. I don't have 10, but I think they're kind of more telling takeaways now that we're 2 weeks into the season. There's more substance to these takeaways now that we have 2 weeks of action. So without further ado, the first takeaway: the Red Wings are going to be in the mix. They're going to be in the wild card mix at the very least. I'm not ready to say yet that they're going to be a safe playoff team. I ran a poll and 61% of people said that they were going to make the playoffs. I'm not ready to go there. I had them as an 81-point team. I think that's probably going to age pretty poorly. They're going to end up around 90-ish points right now, but I'm not fully ready to believe. They have had a fantastic start. They're 5-1, lost their first game to the New Jersey Devils, then beat Tampa, Columbus, Pittsburgh, Ottawa, Calgary. So basically 4 playoff hopefuls. They had no super teams. They didn't beat the Vegas Golden Knights or the Colorado Avalanche, but some pretty quality wins that they didn't win last year. And when you look at it right now, it's obviously starting with DeBrincat and Larkin. They've been fantastic, 12 and 11 points respectively. DeBrincat with 8 or 9 goals, I think. They are playing absolutely insane. I compared them to like prime Lemieux and Yager. That's obviously going to slow down, but I think you can say that Larkin's going to be a 90-point guy this year. DeBrincat's probably going to cruise past 40 goals if he in his next 76. All he needs is 32 goals. That seems pretty doable, but they're a fantastic duo. What it's going to come down to this team, in my opinion, is like the top line, we know it's going to be good, but like the so-called bottom 9, their second, third, and fourth lines is really what's going to determine success for this team. Because I think the goalie tandem can be okay. James Reimer's playing amazing right now. It can be okay. Defense scores actually look pretty solid. A guy like Justin Holl is leading the entire NHL in plus minus. It's crazy when they actually just play him in a third pairing role, like number 6 role. He can actually flourish in it instead of in Toronto when he's playing like just over 20 minutes a night. Justin Holl has been great. Their D-core as a whole has been great. Ben Sherratt's even looked pretty decent. But when it comes to them, I think it's going to come down to some of their pieces in that forward core not named DeBrincat and Larkin. Can JT Compher put up 50 goals or 50 points again? 50 goals. 50 points again. Last year he had 52 and was Selke level. If he can repeat that. Daniel Sprong, in about a 66 game sample size, had 42 points last year for Seattle, really broke out. Can he repeat that? David Perron had 56 points, but he is 35 now. Can he repeat that? Andrew Kopp had a very rough first year in Detroit. Rough by his own standards. He still had 42 points, but only 9 goals and 33 assists. Compare that to his previous year with Winnipeg and New York. He was fantastic. Can he get back to like 50-point production? They're going to need those 4th, 5th, and 6th, and 7th best skaters to really step up because, again, I think outside of Larkin and DeBrincat, they don't really have another star on that team. Lucas Raymond, I think, will eventually get there, but they're lacking that top-end forward talent, so they're going to need all of their depth pieces to really step up. Right now, I would say they missed the playoffs, but they're definitely going to be in the mix. I was in part wrong about the Detroit Red Wings, but let me know what you think about that. Next up, Boston Bruins might be good for forever. They might be good forever. They might never not be good. Already 5-0, and in fairness, it was wins over Chicago, Nashville, San Jose, LA. LA's a good team. Anaheim, and then their next 2 games are Anaheim and Chicago. So they're probably going to start 7-0, but 4 of those wins are against like the worst teams in the entire NHL, or 5 out of the 7 wins against the 3 worst teams by most people. So it is a little bit of, not fugazi, but it is a little bit most misleading. It's not like the Vegas Golden Knights like stomped the Stars, stomped a bunch of good teams, but this team is just so well coached. Jim Montgomery is a fantastic coach ever since he walked in there. Now, what are they? They have, let me do some math. They have 145 points in 87 games. That's 145 in 31 games. But Jim Montgomery is a fantastic coach. Their system is so set. Their defense is fantastic. Olmark has a 962 and a 1 goal against average. Swayman has a worse 943 and a 2.02. So they still have one of the best goalie tandems in the entire league with one of the best defense scores in the entire league. And then you have guys like Matt Pontra coming out of nowhere. Potentially, we're going to get to a Calder take that I have, but Matt Pontra is walked in out of nowhere from the OHL. Looks like he can be an effective middle 6 forward for them. I think Morgan Geekie has looked very good for the Boston Bruins. They found these very depth. Even a JVR has been pretty dangerous. Don Sweeney was able to find some of these low bargain value veteran deals for cheap, and it's really been able to replenish their their forward core after losing, obviously, Bertuzzi, Hathaway, Bergeron, Krejci. So it looks like the Boston Bruins, I'm not ready to say that they're going to win the Atlantic Division again or something like that. But I had them in the playoffs for the season in one of the wild card spots. I would pretty safely stick to that. They are just such a sound and consistent team. And yeah, going forward, as long as Montgomery's coach, as long as they have Pasta, McAvoy, Swayman, Olmark, it's hard to bet against them, man, because everybody was like, this is the year that they finally fall off. It doesn't appear to be the case. So the Boston Bruins, good forever. A team that might actually, on the flip side of that, might be one of the worst teams ever is the San Jose Sharks have a potential to be one of the worst teams ever. They're not going to be the 1972 Capitals that had like 22 points. It's not going to be that bad. But like of the modern era, this team is shaping up to be one of the worst ever. You look at them, they're 0-4-1. And their one overtime loss or shootout loss was to the Avalanche when Mackenzie Blackwood played like the game of his life and they still lost. Like that's their 1 point that they got. The other losses have been one of the other 5 was by 2 goals. All the other 3 have been by 3 or more goals. So they're getting embarrassed basically every single night out here. They have had a pretty hard start to the season in terms of their schedule. But you look at it, Thomas Hertl right now for that team is the leading scorer with 5 points, which doesn't sound that bad. He has 5 points in 5 games. But their next leading scorers are Henry Thrun, Fabian Zetterlund, and Philip Zadina with 2 points. So it goes Hertl with 5. And then the next 3 only have 2. They are getting absolutely no offensive production, which you could have assumed once they got rid of Timo Meier, once they got rid of Erik Karlsson, and obviously Logan Couture is out to start the year. So this team is very bad. In terms of the defense core, Mario Ferraro is the number 1 defenseman right now, playing around 22 minutes a night. I had to type out the pronunciation of this name, but the second leader of ice time is Nikolai Nizov, who played 16 games over the last 2 seasons. So he hasn't even been an NHL regular, and he is playing 19 minutes a night. He's the second leading time of ice guy on the entire San Jose Sharks. So this defense core is god-awful. Vlasic literally got benched here. I'm going to throw up the stat. Vlasic got benched. He played one of the worst games ever recorded by Hockey Stat Cards, which track a bunch of factors. He was a negative 7.21, and that was by far the worst this season. So when looking at Marc-Edouard Vlasic, he still has, 3 years left, like $7.25 million. That's probably the worst deal in hockey right now in terms of this season. So their defense core stinks. They're not getting any offensive production. How bad can this team be? The goaltending's actually been solid. Kakinen and Blackwood are both above goals saved above expected. They have positive goals saved above expected, but just because they're getting pelted so much, they have over 3.5 goals against average. And when you look at this team, I think they do have a chance to be a sub 50-point team, especially when you consider off to this horrible start, they have a 10% points percentage. And when looking at their cap-friendly page, guys like Kevin LeBlanc, Duclair, Hoffman, Barabanov, they're all unrestricted free agents this summer. So if you are Mike Greer, you probably want to move off them and at least get something for them. So not only are those guys not very good and not that high-level contributors anymore, they're probably going to be off the team. You're going to have like even AHL guys that are worse have to be elevated for the final 30 games. This is one of the worst teams that we have ever seen. It's going to be very fun to track just how bad they can be if they go like sub 50. Next take is... Next tape is the Washington Capitals. Might be cooked, man. The Washington Capitals might be cooked. This is not ideal. They've only started 1-2-1. They did get a win against the Calgary Flames, but they got blown out by the Senators, blown out by the Pittsburgh Penguins. And you look at it, lost to the Canadiens in overtime. If you're trying to be a playoff team in the Eastern Conference, you cannot be dropping points to the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal Canadiens are actually having a good start to the season, but that's just not ideal for a team like the Washington Capitals. Ovechkin, 0 goals in 4 games. I'm not going to say that he's going to not even score 30 goals this year. He's eventually going to start cooking, but maybe he doesn't hit 40 this year. Maybe he has taken a step back. Darcy Kemper looks like he's kind of taken a step back. Negative 2.2 goals saved above expected right now. He has like an 870 save percentage. I had him having a pretty solid year, putting up like a 9-10, 9-12 like he always does. He has started behind the 8 ball, and he is like 33 or 34 years old. Then the rest of the team, Oshie, Sandin, Backstrom, all have 0 points in the season. Wilson, Kuznetsov, only 1 point in 4 games. This was an 80-point team last year, and they're just old as hell. They're a slow team nowadays. You look at them in transition, they're just not the same team. The The skill is starting to diminish as well. It's just Matthew Phillips is like the only positive that you can really draw from this start. He has 3 points in only 4 games. But when looking at the Washington Capitals, it might be the beginning of the end. And if they are, we can talk about it later, like who would they even trade? Because a lot of their guys are signed kind of long-term and kind of expensive. That's definitely something I might have to dive into. But the Capitals might be on their way out. The fifth takeaway, I think the Lightning might be able to survive this next month without Vasilevsky. They're 2-2 right now, which is technically 2-4, but 2 overtime games. Jonas Johansson, the regular stats aren't that good, but he has a 902. But in terms of goals saved above expected, he's been about average. I think he can hold it back and hold it down and play okay goaltending. And when you look at it, some of their star players are really rising to the occasion. Victor Hedman, 6 points in 6 games. I wouldn't say he looks back to his old Norris form, but he's definitely improved after most people have written him off. Kucherov, 6 goals, 3 assists in 9 games. Absolutely carrying. 2019 Kucherov is back. Hagel's looked good. Point has 7 points. Stamkos has looked good when he played. I think that they can hold it together and play 500 hockey until Vasilevsky is healthy. Vasilevsky was announced on September 28th that he was out 8 to 10 weeks. So you look at it right now, it's the 23rd of October. End of November, post-Thanksgiving is the earliest that he probably should come back. Can they stay 500 for another 12, 15 games? I think it's definitely possible. And as long as they don't dip below 400 and they get Vasilevsky back, I think they'd be fine. Right now, the goaltending, it's okay. It's below average. But once they do get Vasilevsky back and once they are still in the mix, assuming, I think they're going to be perfectly fine and make the playoffs. My last takeaway is I think the Calder race is going to be kind of open. It's definitely Bedard's to lose. Don't get me wrong. He still is the most talented player, but starting the season out with 2 goals and 2 assists in 6 games for 4 points, it's a solid start, but it's not that generational right off the rip dominating. He is generating a lot of chances, but considering his line mates are like Taylor Radish and like Ryan Donato, and I don't even think Taylor Hall's on his line right now, it's just he's not going to be racking up, I think, 75 plus points this year. And when you look at the rookies right now, he's tied with Logan Cooley, Ridley Gregg, Matthew Phillips, who I mentioned before. Nyes has started to come alive. Pontra is really balling out. Evangelista is starting to cook. Carlson is playing first line, as well as top power play with Zegras and Terry, although they're benching him for some reasons, occasional games. Cooley's playing with Zuccarello and Michelli on that top line. I just look at it, and heading into the season, I assumed that Bedard was kind of going to run away with this. But now that I have seen some, not lack of production, but I haven't seen that next level, and the Chicago Blackhawks don't look like that good of a hockey team, I think it's going to be up in the air. I definitely would still slightly take Bedard over the field, but right now the Bedard odds are like minus 170. I think that's a little bit too extra. I forgot even Adam Fantilli. He's starting to kind of come alive, scored a goal in his last game. I think it's going to be a good race. I don't think Bedard is just going to utterly run away with this. I think at least one of Cooley, Fantilli, Carlson, Pontra, one of them is going to keep pace with Bedard at the very least, even if Bedard does eventually put up 70 plus points. I think one of those guys is going to be another stud, but when looking at the Calder Trophy, it's going to be much better than we assume. But those are my takeaways. So we got the Wings are going to be in the mix. We'll just slam that. Wings are going to be in the mix. Boston Bruins might be good forever. San Jose Sharks could be one of the worst teams ever. The Capitals might be cooked. I think the Lightning can survive until Vasilevsky is healthy. And then lastly, the Calder is a lot closer than maybe the books and maybe the media is making it out to seem. But let me know in the comments, what are your takeaways from week 2? Spam them down below. What do you think about my takeaways? And as always, like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next one.